Hi everyone, welcome to #NoFilter. I'm Josh Lloyd. Today we're talking with Erica Bream. Her work has influenced films such as Star Trek Into Darkness and TV shows such as Workaholics and House of Lies. Welcome to the show, Erica.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, we're rolling. Here we are. We're live.
We're live. I dig it.
Yeah. So what got you into casting? How did you get started?
Well, I started very young, actually. I always loved theater growing up, and I would perform in my high school musicals and things like that, but I had horrible audition anxiety, like massive, crazy, can't breathe audition anxiety, and this is for my choir teacher for my high school musical.
Yeah.
So I thought I wanted to be an actor, and then very quickly decided that that was just not going to be for me, but I wanted to do something related to it. So I just kind of started becoming aware of casting, seeing it in the credits and asking questions about it. And just started that way. And I got an internship right out of high school, and then I went out to USC for film school, and I would just stay there every summer and intern in different places. And I tried a couple of other things just to see if I would want to do something else in the industry, but I kept coming back to casting. It was just working with the actors just opened my heart in this way that I had never experienced before. And so I was hooked pretty young. And right out of college, I got my first real casting job, and then just have been working in it ever since.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Dakota, small.
We can barely hear your accent.
Yes. Well, I've been working on minimizing it for a long time, but it can come out.
When you're mad, or
when I'm emotional, when I talk to my dad.
Yeah.
You know, if I have too much to drink, things like that. That's when
fun.
it's the long O's and the whole thing.
Well, they say when you're drinking is when you're your real self.
That's right. Well, it's true. It's very true. So yeah, so I grew up in North Dakota, and then spent 17 years out in LA. So I feel like I'm kind of a little bit of both.
What inspired you when you were young? I mean, you said that you had stage fright, and It was really crippling for you. But outside of seeing that, the casting process was there, like, what was the catalyst that really turned you to see this as something that you wanted to do and become?
For me, it always goes back to theater, live theater. My grandparents, so I grew up in North Dakota, my grandparents were living in New Jersey, and every time we'd go to visit them, they would take us into Manhattan and we'd go see a show. And it was always the thing we looked forward to more than anything else in the whole world. It was so fun. I mean, my sister and I would just run around the house singing the scores to musicals all the time.
Really?
Oh God, yes. Since I was very, very little.
Which ones?
Oh God, but how much time do we have here?
We have an hour and a half.
It started with Phantom, like you do, Singing in the Rain, a chorus line, which is great when you're 10 years old singing, tits and ass. Guys and Dolls, Cabaret, Chicago. I mean, all of them. We loved them all. I can sing you any song from any of those. Oklahoma, Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, all of them. Rodgers and Hammerstein, all of them. So we loved all of that stuff from very early, and then movies as well were always a sort of a big deal in our family. We'd had movie nights and the whole thing, and I just kind of became aware of it as I got older, and I was trying to figure out what I wanted to go to college for, and what am I going to do with myself when I become a grown-up. And I was watching a movie. We went to see a movie, can't remember which one now, with my grandmother, and the credits rolled past, and it said casting by Ronnie Yeskel. And so I'm related to a bunch of Yeskels.
Really?
Yes, my grandmother's sister married a Yeskel, so I have a bunch of Yeskel cousins. And so the credits rolled by, and I said, Grandma, are we related to this person? And she said, oh yeah, it's so-and-so's daughter, your third cousin or whatever that makes
and
her.
You're like, wow.
Yeah, and I didn't even know at the time if she was a man or a woman. I had no idea who this person was. I'd never met her. But knowing that there was somebody within my periphery that did it, just really kind of seeded the idea that this was a real thing and it could be really fun. So that really was kind of what started it.
Well, that's funny that you say that, because I felt the same way about Christopher Lloyd. I'm a Lloyd. If you don't know, my last name's Lloyd.
Sure.
Should be in the lower thirds at some point. But Christopher Lloyd and Michael J. Fox and all of that. And I was like, is he related to us? And my dad's like, no.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he is related to me, whatever. And then I went on to just kind of watch the credits like you do, and there were Lloyds all over the credits.
Oh, yeah.
Tons of Lloyds in media. And then I have several members of my family who worked in the back end. Many of them were just like real grunt work guys, electrical guys.
Sure.
And they worked in Memphis on TV stations and stuff. And so I was really inspired by them. One thing I did notice, I dove deep on you on social media before we got here.
All right.
Not a creep. I noticed that your father is a very well-known photographer.
Yes, my parents are humongous inspirations to me because they both had major career changes in their 50s. My family, the reason we were in North Dakota is that we had a men's clothing store there. And it was in the family, it had our family name on it, the whole thing. And then I think it was right around the time that I was getting ready to go to college. My dad just decided he didn't want to do it anymore. It was never his true passion. And so it took a couple of years, but they closed the store. They moved from our small town in North Dakota to Minneapolis. And he had always been a hobbyist photographer, always, my entire childhood. Yeah. He started doing portraiture and things like that, weddings, when I was still in high school. And then he just decided, this is what I love, this is what I'm going to do. And he went for it. He decided to go for it. And
how did that influence you as a young girl?
Well, he always had a camera in our faces, always.
Me too.
I think it has actually is one of the catalysts for making me as goofy as I am.
Yeah.
Because when you've got a camera in your face all the time, you start to get self-conscious, especially when you're a teenager going through puberty, and you start making
notes.
yes, you start making faces and you start being goofy, and because inevitably there's a bunch of very bad pictures of you that come out during all those years. My dad was known for a while for taking pictures of us when we would have our mouths full of food. It was just notorious. And so I think, he has made me, first of all, his love of cameras, he got me into it when I was really young. I started taking pictures with him when I was about 8 years old. Nice. So I started to get to know cameras and light and all of that stuff, how to frame a shot, all of that stuff. He really taught me when I was very young. And that helped me a lot. It still helps me, in what I do when I'm framing auditions, when I'm shooting stuff. I know how to white balance. I know how to, adjust lighting.
How did that benefit you in LA going into a production suite or a production set, and you're just in casting, but here you are and you completely understand the ergonomics and the science behind everything?
Well, I do and I don't. I mean, I can appreciate it because I know how studied my father is at it.
But you know enough to get by.
I know enough to get by, kind of. I mean, don't anybody hire me to be your DP. I can't do that.
I would trust you. I would.
That's very nice. Don't do that.
I would let it happen.
You would be sorry. But no, I have a strong appreciation for what goes into it. I certainly know how much science is behind it. And mathematics. And that's sort of what got me disinterested in it. Is that I didn't want to do all the math to, get all the stuff correct. I didn't want to learn Photoshop. I didn't want to learn any of that stuff.
Well, I don't think I did either, but I did.
I know. Yeah. See, but there are people who do, and who are really good at it. And I appreciate those people very much.
I think the magic was lost for me on camera work when we went digital.
Oh, yeah.
I studied 2001 to 2005 in film school, but I was lucky to go to high school and I had 4 years in high school of photography and video, which is you don't see that anymore.
Sure.
So by the time I got out of school, I had 8 years of experience, but I learned on film. I learned on 16 millimeter. I learned on 35 millimeter. I specifically learned on 35 millimeter photography. And I spent 8 years in a dark room, and I come out of college and they're like, oh, you don't need to know that anymore. Yeah. Learn this instead. Yeah. And I was like, oh, but the magic was lost when I no longer could make the film turn into an image.
Sure.
Or being in the dark room, taking the stop bath, and all of a sudden seeing the photography come to life in black and white or whatever. That's where I lost some passion, but I did find magic in post-production as an editor. So that helped me a little bit.
If I weren't a casting director, I'd be an editor.
Yeah.
That was sort of my other passion when I was in film school. I don't enjoy being on set. I feel like there are so many moving parts to it that
It's a grudge.
Yeah, to me, sometimes it feels like nothing is happening, even though I know things are happening.
It's where the
obviously.
magic happens, right?
Sure, but I don't even really like watching dailies for the same reason. The stop, start. I want to see it all in one shot.
Call me when it's done.
Right,
That's what I would
totally.
say, yeah.
And but I loved being in an editing bay and putting the puzzle pieces together that way. That's what casting is, really, right? We're putting a puzzle together, and that's what editing is.
You're talking
too.
to the choir right now. That's exactly what I love about it. And the puzzle pieces have no fitting parts. There's sometimes there are wrong ways to put them together.
Yes,
we see it all the time in our Asheville horror films. but when you have like 900 different ways to put it together, and it's all up to the creative to figure it out.
Yeah.
I would love to just do a study and have 3 different editors put together the same piece and just see what happens.
Oh, yeah.
It could be completely different.
Oh yeah. I think it's so fun and it's so interesting. And I'm sure you'll talk to editors and they'll be like, oh yeah, it's a slog, but it is, I think there's just so many fun things that you can do in an editing bay, and really make something come to life. But casting is similar. We're just at completely opposite ends of the process. We're pre-production, they're post, and that's how it goes.
As a woman, how are you best using your strengths to bring the right people to the project?
Well, I think, so a lot of the casting directors you'll meet are women. I don't know how it turned out that way. It just did. That said, there are some amazing men who are casting directors as well. I think the thing that we all share is a sense of empathy. We have to be kind of parents in terms of the process. We are momming or dadding, parenting, our actors, the agents, our producers. We're making sure that everybody is kind of cared for along the way. The needs of the production are met. The actors are putting their hearts out on their sleeves, and we need to make sure that we are respecting their process as well and what they're putting forth. So that's sort of what you'll find in us is really that we all share a great deep sense of empathy, and we have a very deep sense of respect for what the actor goes through.
It almost feels like you're a caregiver.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. I think maybe that's why there are more women in it. But again, like I said, there are some amazing men who are casting directors, who I'm sure you've heard of them. They're winning awards. They're doing all the same things that the women are.
Probably don't know their names.
But they're great. It's but I think really we all have a certain eye, from a technical standpoint. We all come from a certain background where we understand and we can at least direct actors in the moment, in the room. And then we really look out for the people who we're working with, whether it be the actors or our producers or our director, all of that stuff. We're there to keep things realistic and moving, but also, let the passion flow in our rooms and, for the process in general.
You often hear horror stories about, I'm not going there.
Sure.
You often hear horror stories about, actors or actresses being taken advantage of just from a financial standpoint.
Yeah.
Do you have any anecdotal stories about how you've protected people in the past from certain situations?
Yeah, sort of. So, we work on a wide range of projects with a wide range of budgets, right? And we will often work on features that are micro budgets or ultra low budgets or things like that, where you're only paying the actors $100 a day, if that, things like that. So that can't cost the cover, that can't cover the cost of childcare if you have a kid, right?
Or even your food for the...
Right. So but it's for the experience and everything else. There are a lot of good reasons to do those projects. But that said, because we can't pay them a lot, they're getting the experience, the credit, the copy, the $100 a day, whatever. We try really hard to minimize the process for them. So I'm not going to allow my production team to have 5 callbacks on something like that. I don't want an actor to come in and read for the same people 5 times. That's not fair to them. That's not fair to their time and what they're about to get from it. If they're the kind of actors who we want to cast in these things, which are experienced actors with long resumes and everything else, because they help elevate anything, those are the kinds of people that shouldn't have to prove themselves 5 times to only get experience and credit and copy. You know what I mean? So that, we'll protect actors that way. We will, of course, always protect actors in terms of what happens, what goes on in our own audition rooms and things like that, making sure that they feel safe, making sure that they feel that they have the space to emote the way they need to emote, make sure that they don't feel put on the spot to do something that would make them highly uncomfortable, things like that. That's really what we're there to help make sure that if if a producer who doesn't know any better doesn't realize that what they're saying or asking for is inappropriate, it's on us to shut that down, and say, that's not what we do here. Let's talk about that later, whatever.
You're holding them to a higher standard.
Yeah, we're sort of, like I said, we're in both worlds in that we are protecting the actor, but we're protecting our production at the same time. So we're covering both.
Yeah. Have you ever had to drop a production because they were misusing your actors or actresses' time?
No, thankfully, gratefully. I have known casting directors who have walked away from things because, not necessarily because somebody was abusing the gift that an actor brings, but maybe things were a mess where they were poorly treated. The casting director was poorly treated. Maybe the actors were poorly treated on set. Who knows?
Or just paid where they weren't paid.
Yeah, there are a number of reasons why a creative might split from a production, whether it be a casting director, or producer, writer. You could leave, you could get fired. There's a number of ways. It's not a marriage, thankfully.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, fortunately, I've not had to necessarily just drop anything because of lack of respect.
Yeah. You shed light with me last night through email about how you didn't work at Warner Brothers, but you worked for Warner Brothers vicariously by way of Bad Robot.
That's right.
Can you talk to me about that process and how you got set up with Bad Robot and how you eventually worked with Warner Brothers?
Sure. With luck, honestly, like anything else in this business.
Lucky break.
Yeah, totally. I started working with my amazing friend, mentor, my family now, April Webster, when I was about 24, 25 years old, something like that. And I started with her company. She had multiple projects going on at the same time. So I started on one of her shows on Criminal Minds that year. And that was the year that she was casting the first Star Trek movie.
Nice.
So she was super busy. I didn't get to see very much of her. And then the writer's strike happened. That was the year of the writer's strike. So my show got shut down. And she had just picked up the pilot of Fringe. And Fringe was already fully written. So we were able to cast that because there just were no rewrites happening. They felt, the script had been picked up. They just weren't revising it. Writers weren't in the audition room, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I got laid off my show. But Fringe was going, so she picked me up and put me on that. And that was really my first Bad Robot project. And then, so J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot had an overall deal at Warner Brothers at the time. I think technically they still kind of do, although I think he's about to get a new deal, who knows where. Maybe still Warner.
Oh, J.J.
But his deal was there. So all of his TV stuff was, the studio for it was Warner Brothers. So Fringe included was a Warner Brothers project. So casting, much like a lot of other contractors in the entertainment industry, we are hired by the producer, but also the studio. The studio is the one who pays our checks. And so technically, I answered to Warner Brothers, but I answered to April and to Bad Robot first. So they have more power to fire me than Warner Brothers did, even though Warner Brothers was paying my checks.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
And they didn't fire you.
No, they didn't, gratefully.
Yeah.
So that was really my first introduction to all of that. And we didn't see JJ at all because he was shooting Star Trek at the time. So he was busy.
The least.
Yeah, he weighed in and everything else. But I didn't actually get to meet him for, I don't even know when the first time I met him was.
So you did meet JJ?
Oh yes, many times.
Does he live up to his reputation?
Yes,
All right.
1,000,000%. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. I feel very lucky to have been able to work on pretty much every project that I've been able to work on. I've had amazing experiences with my producers, with the casting directors who've hired me on to be on their teams. I know you listed off a couple of different projects, and there was a different casting director at the helm of each of those things, who I was lucky enough to work with. And I've gotten to learn from all of them, and so far I've had just one amazing experience after another.
Well, what's interesting is now you're a casting director.
Yes.
Tell me about the process of deciding, hey, I'm no longer going to work for a director. I'm going to become my own casting director.
Sure.
How was that scary?
Yes, it's terrifying. So like I said, I was lucky enough to be with April for a long time. She made me a casting director under her company. So I was a casting director with her.
Yeah.
But all that really meant was I didn't have to get the jobs. You know, everybody would come to April because she's April.
That's the hard part, though.
Yes, exactly.
Whew.
So the first time ever that I had to find my own work was when I moved here to Asheville. And it is hard.
Worst place to find work ever.
And it's really hard. So, I mean, you guys know, everybody knows who has to hustle in this industry, whether you're an actor, a producer, a DP, a sound person, a grip, whatever. You have to hustle to get your jobs. And I just got so fucking lucky that in my entire 17 years in LA, I never had to do that. And there is a learning curve to it, you know, and how to be authentic, but also assertive without being aggressive. And, you know, there's a lot.
And as a woman, if you're aggressive, look out.
Yeah.
They judge you right away.
Don't get me started there. But it has been just fascinating and difficult. And I just have a whole new level of respect for people who have decided to go out and do it on their own in LA, in a bigger market, where the competition is fierce. I mean, it's fierce down here too. There's just a lot more of them in LA and in New York in the bigger markets. Yeah,
but at least you're in an ocean with lots of fish, where here you're in a very small, quaint lake.
Yes, it's a beautiful lake, full of very talented fish. Well, no, what I was getting at with that is that there are a lot of amazingly talented casting directors in the Southeast, many of whom have been here for a long time before it has become the major hub that it's become.
Yeah.
And some who are newer and younger, and you know, some who have been here longer, and they have been so welcoming to me, and just I feel very lucky and blessed to be among them.
I mention this all the time, how Atlanta is really a catalyst for change.
Sure.
And I think a lot of people out west may not have even noticed. Well, now they know, but up until 2008, I don't think they really understood what was happening.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything's happening in Atlanta, and they keep calling it Hollywood and all of this stuff.
Sure.
And I just mentioned, off camera, my friend in Columbus, you know, and it's happening all over the country.
Yeah.
And you were surprised off camera again. She was talking about how surprised she was how many really high-end media professionals live in our Western North Carolina region. And I think what we're realizing is that the film and television from the 90s especially inspired so many of us as children to want to be in the industry. And so now, especially with our film schools banging out, you know, at least each film school is banging out 100 new professionals every year,
sure,
if not 1,000, some of them. And we're seeing a massive surplus of media professionals. But in the South, what we're seeing outside of Atlanta, and I would even say in Atlanta, there's a deficit of jobs. And so we've got this weird divide where a lot of us are really scrounging to find the right opportunities, and there are just not as many available in our region yet.
Yes.
However, in the next 30 years, I have a feeling that will become less of an issue.
Yeah, and you know, I think the best thing for me personally that I have found, at least, about being in Western North Carolina is your proximity to the other hubs. So Atlanta, obviously, Charlotte, Charleston, Nashville, they're all within decent driving distance. You know, the only one that is considerably far is New Orleans, you know, or Tampa.
It's a 2-hour flight.
Sure, it's just a heck of a drive, right? Yeah. So that to me has been a huge benefit to living in Asheville specifically, is that I can drive into Atlanta and teach a class and then come back. I can, get to Charlotte to do callbacks if I need to in person. There's just so many things. It's easy for people to get here and there. Plus, I just love living here. I mean, it's an amazing place to be. But that, I know a lot of people who work in Atlanta don't live in Atlanta proper. They live in Alpharetta or...
They pretend they live in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, sure.
Even people who live here have Atlanta addresses on their Facebook pages.
Yeah, and because that's how they feel they need to get hired, right?
Yeah, it's a shame.
I know, but it is true. I mean, you have to seem like you are the most affordable, talented option.
Yeah.
Right? That's the idea. That's what they're trying to put out there. And until you can build up enough credits where people are like, let's pay for their housing and per diem, that's kind of what you have to do.
Scarlett Johansson. You gotta be Scarlett to do that.
Well, hopefully not quite. But yeah, so that's sort of the tricky part of not living in Atlanta itself is how do you manage that? How do you manage your time? How do you manage your finances in order to make that work?
As an industry professional, what inspires you now?
Well, I think the multitude of amazing projects out there. When I first started, not to sound too old, but when I first started in casting, TV was just the networks. It was HBO had just had had The Sopranos and they had Sex and the City, so they had, and I guess The Wire. Right, but that was HBO. It was so nobody had HBO. I mean, that was for fancy people then, right? So
yeah, we didn't have it.
Yeah, so it was down to the networks, and there were summertime hiatuses where nobody was working, and it was just a very different industry. It was also like movie people never did TV. I mean, never. That was not a thing. They do not cross. TV was the bastard stepchild.
And now Anna Kendrick's doing commercials.
And Julianne Moore just signed on to do a television show. And
Wow.
Anthony Hopkins is doing TV. And I mean, it is a completely different universe that we live in. And the projects get more and more edgy and exciting and interesting.
Yeah.
I just think that there is so much creativity happening. It is the fact that the world is expanding in terms of diversity and voices and representation is amazing. I mean, obviously so long overdue, but all of these things, the fact that women are standing up and saying, I want to get paid the same as my male co-stars, and they're getting those things. All of that stuff, it's just completely different than the way it was not horribly long ago, and it's an amazing change. These are amazing, wonderful changes. So every project that comes across my desk is completely different. I just finished a sci-fi TV show, and then I just got a script for an indie that is very quirky and funny and odd and different. And the two projects, the writing could not be more distinct and different. And
it's refreshing.
It's completely refreshing.
Yeah.
There are trends here and there, and you're always going to have that. Reboots and whatever. There are going to be trends, but there's just a massive diversity of work out there right now, and that is really fun.
It's the script process. How much of the scripts do you read when
All
you're
of
casting?
It.
You just
you go
through the whole thing.
Oh yes, and that's
crazy.
Oh yeah, I mean
you don't just read the role.
Oh God, no. You need the context.
Yeah.
Without the context, you really don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, you don't think about a casting person or a casting director to actually be a part of the script process. At least I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
that's me being naive.
We're not really. I mean, we can certainly give a note or two, but we know, the writer's the writer. They're going to take. They're going to listen to the notes call from the studios and the networks and whatever, but we can help them in terms of the audition process. We are often pulling sides from early drafts, right? Because scripts get revised and things like that. Tons of drafts. And so inevitably, because we're so early in the process, we're pulling from early drafts of scripts where some of the dialogue is not quite fleshed out. Right?
Yeah.
And that's when we can really help the writers, because they can see where every single actor is bumping on the same line. It's just unnatural for whatever reason. It's not coming out of people's mouths.
Yeah.
This transitional beat just doesn't quite make sense. You need, there needs to be something else in there. We don't necessarily say, you need another beat in here, but they can see it once it starts to come alive, once people are actually saying their words.
Yeah.
I've certainly given my opinion on scripts, and I've had writer friends who are like, would you read this and give me some feedback? And I've done all that stuff. We read a ton of scripts, and it's a skill. It's something that you have to learn how to do. You have to practice doing it. You have to read as much as you can, as often as you can. I remember when I first started in the industry, it would take me forever to read a script, because every piece of stage direction on the page would take me like 5 minutes to stop and think about it and picture it and just, bring it to life and think, okay, where, and I would sort of block it out in my mind.
Yeah.
And it would take me forever to get through a script. And now I can bang out, a million scripts a day,
A million?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
but
listen to her. Don't say that. People will hold you to a really high standard.
yeah, well, but it's just a lot easier now. And it's more fun. Once it becomes less tedious, it's just a lot more fun because you can stay in it.
I'm a very slow reader.
Well, and that's fine.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with being a slow reader. You're absorbing.
Yeah. I would be like, can you send this to me on tape? Like, can I get the script on tape?
Is somebody reading this to me, please?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I got to this yet. What brought you to Asheville specifically?
Well, we had a child, and we didn't have any family anywhere close to LA. It's tough. And we decided we wanted to, so my son has 3 sets of grandparents. My parents live in Minneapolis. Yeah. My husband's dad and stepmom live in Southport at the beach in North Carolina. Oh, and cool. Then his mom and stepdad retired here to Asheville from Raleigh about 5 years ago.
So you were choosing between Wilmington and Asheville?
Yeah, essentially, mostly because the idea with us moving was, let's go somewhere where I can continue working in casting. And we didn't want to live in Atlanta. We didn't want to be that big of a drive away from a set of grandparents, away from family.
No, you really need to be within an hour.
Yeah, so that is why we chose to come here as opposed to living in the city. It would have been easier. It would have been a million times easier if we had moved to Atlanta and I could set up shop there and just be done with it. But I don't think we would have had the same experience that we've had living close to family, being able to afford a house, not living in a big city. All of the things that Asheville affords in terms of lifestyle. It's just completely different.
Do you feel like you sacrificed money or opportunity by moving here?
Yes. But for me, the benefits outweighed the cost, 100%. The benefit was that we could raise our son someplace that was more cost effective, more affordable than Los Angeles, where my husband and I could still work, hopefully, where we could plant some roots and, just afford daycare, have family close by, send our kid to public schools, all of those things. And it's, we're really, from an emotional standpoint, it's been the best decision of our lives. From a financial standpoint, we've had to really work for it.
And Asheville's not easy. It's expensive to live here.
Yeah. It totally is.
Was that sticker shock for you coming from LA? I mean, it's expensive in LA.
Yeah, I mean, you can't compare it to LA, but you're making higher wages in LA too.
But you're like, geez, this is still really high.
Oh yeah, well, and I think if you compare, like if you're looking at houses and you compare houses in Candler or Weaverville to what you can get in Asheville, I mean, just that is a complete dichotomy. It's kind of nuts. Yeah. So yeah, I think from that standpoint that it wasn't nearly as inexpensive as we originally thought it might be. It's a lot of the housing prices, daycare prices, childcare, all of that stuff, food is on par with bigger cities.
Well, you're going to Whole Foods, I'm assuming.
Oh God, no.
No?
No, I gave that up long ago.
Where do you get your groceries?
Usually at the Teeter.
You go to the Tea? That's cool.
Yep, cool. Or Ingles.
We drop into English. The Spanish people call it Inglés.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Sí.
They don't know better. They just think it's Inglés.
Yeah, sure.
They don't know it's some guy's last name.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah.
Anyways, you just had a son.
Yes.
He's 22 months?
21 months.
21 months?
Yep.
I guess he's walking and talking a little bit.
Oh, yes.
How has that changed you just from a personal standpoint? How have you become... I don't know. What has it done to you?
I've just gotten more relaxed about work. Your priorities just completely shift, when you have a kid. And I've always put my job first, sometimes to a detriment, to my relationships with my family and my, love relationships and anything else like that, friends. But I was always a worker. I wanted to work more. that was my thing. And then I had a kid, and I want to work as little as possible.
Don't say that.
I'm so sorry.
This isn't in camera.
I want to make the time that I work be super valuable.
Yeah.
In terms of the projects that I work on, obviously the finances too, but the value of the work has to be worth it in terms of the time that I spend away from my child and my husband, of course.
Yeah.
But
he's not
mostly
important.
my child.
He's not as important. We know.
Totally. But it has changed now that, when he was an infant, I could barely stand to be away from him. And now that he's a toddler and walking and talking and he goes to daycare and things like that, I'm like, okay, I've got more time.
5 hours. Okay.
I know.
Go.
But give me more work. I'm trying to soak up as much of it as I can now that he's a little bit more independent and all of that. But it just makes the time that I do get to spend with him so precious and so fun. I mean, he's a toddler, so he's got his moments. But But yeah, it just changes what you want to put first. When my husband and I got married, he and I were both working our brains out, and so he was totally fine with the fact that I would sometimes be at the office until 11 at night and then leave at 7 the next morning, because he was doing a lot of the same. So we had a very symbiotic relationship from that standpoint, is that we both loved our jobs and we both valued the fact that the other one wanted to spend a lot of time doing that.
Yeah.
And then we had Harrison, and we're like, oh, let's try to work less, So it's just changed everything.
Your son's named Harrison?
Harrison.
Is his middle name Ford?
No.
Oh, bummer.
I know.
The Fugitive was filmed right here in Bryson City.
All right. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Although I think I may have known that. My husband is a huge fan of that movie.
Yeah, The Fugitive was filmed here, but they pretended it was in Illinois. I don't know why they do that. The 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri was filmed in Waynesville and Black Mountain.
Yeah.
And they tried to pretend it was in Missouri. But have you been to Missouri?
Yes.
There's no mountains in Missouri.
Yeah, well.
Well, the Ozarks, but come on.
The thing is, you have to think of how many people in the audience are going to be aware of that.
I was aware.
Yeah, okay.
Whatever. I'm picky.
You're from here.
But from a casting point of view, this is a tangent, and I'm okay with that.
That's fine.
How does that relate to you when you see a film and they're filming it in some location that is not anything like the location they're trying to depict?
Right.
How does that affect you when you're, doing your job?
Well, it doesn't have a huge effect on me in terms of the process. A lot of times we're casting and they haven't actually picked a location yet.
Oh, wow.
So we come on that early.
You're literally flying blind on all of that stuff?
Yeah, so we're working specifically from the story, right?
Yeah.
From the script, from the concepts that we've derived with the creative team. That's what we're doing. We're pulling from that. The location is location. The location affects us in terms of where does the rest of the supporting cast come from? Who can we afford to fly in? Who do we need to get locally? That kind of thing, if at all. When I first started in the industry, everything was in LA. Everything, and then things started going up to Canada. And then Michigan got some great incentives. A couple things went there, and then New Orleans did, and then Texas did.
And North Carolina fell farther and farther behind.
Yes.
Thanks, guys.
That's a very big shame. But yeah, so back when I first started, you never questioned where the supporting cast was coming from, because they were always coming from LA.
Yeah.
And now once the location is set, we have to figure out, do we need a casting director in that location? What roles are they going to have to focus on? Do we want them to help focus on some of these bigger roles, or just on some of the smaller supporting things? So that's when that stuff comes to bear. And then, as an audience member, when I watch it, if it really bumps for me, I'll be like, oh, that's weird. But it almost never does. It only did for me ever when I watched the show Fargo. Which I believe was shot in Canada, which is fine. Canada is not that different than North Dakota, but
what was your problem?
It's just so North Dakota landscape is pretty diverse, but Fargo, which is just south of my hometown, which is Grand Forks.
So you knew, okay?
Yes, we are on the flat side of the state. There are some beautiful the Black Hills and things like that on the western side of the state. Yeah. Most people don't. But we are completely flat. Like, you could watch your dog run away for 10 miles
like
flat.
Kansas or Nebraska.
Yeah, totally flat. Well, if you're shooting in Vancouver, it's, the landscape is not the same, despite the snow.
Did they shoot in Vancouver?
I
would assume if they shot in Canada, it'd be like Alberta or something.
I don't
weird.
know, honestly. I'm 99% certain it's Canada. I'm just not sure where.
Yeah, I bet we can Wikipedia that.
That's fine.
We won't.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's the only, locations never bother me. I actually always love when a location becomes a character in a story.
Yeah.
Well,
in Fargo, that was the case.
Totally. And I love anything where Los Angeles is a character. Like LA Story.
Funny,
or
that turns
like
me
that.
off.
Oh my God. Well, I know, and it's to each their own, right? But,
just LA, not other places.
Yeah, no, I love anything set in LA where LA is a major part of it.
Whenever that happens, I always feel like, I'm like, oh God, they're so self-absorbed.
Oh God, I love it so much.
It's like another movie in LA. Here we go.
Yeah, but it is, it's for a certain audience. The people outside of LA don't know how long it takes to get from Burbank to Santa Monica and how that's a joke.
And in the movie, it's like 5 minutes.
Yeah, totally.
So like, what?
So, but it's for those people. And I think there's something really special for that.
Okay, yeah. You were talking about casting and like doing more casting outside of LA and how they used to bring people from LA in. I feel like in the past, you would see movies and all the actors and actresses felt very canned, and they were all very pretty and
sure.
You can even come as more modern as Prometheus being one like that. Everyone was beautiful in Prometheus. But in the following Alien Covenant, or I don't know if it was Alien Covenant or no, they were really ugly. And I think that they cast it. They weren't ugly, but they were just normal people.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was Covenant. They were just like normal people. You could tell that they were just kind of like, I call them gremlins. And they just do their jobs, but they're good actors.
Right.
When you get to a point where you're realizing you can cast from places like Greensboro, which is a big hub, I think, for casting,
sure.
Or even Atlanta, or outside of that, Orlando, New Orleans, up in your home state even. Do you feel like you have such a larger breadth of talent to choose from, and you can be more creative with who you choose?
Yes and no. So it depends. That kind of blanket or net, I guess, in terms of casting a wider net, that is all based entirely upon the budget. So it depends, how much money do we have to bring somebody in? If I'm going to have to bring somebody in all the way from Utah, do we want to just pull somebody in from LA? I mean, you have to sort of weigh some of that stuff out. You want the best actors for the role. It would be nice if we could just scrap budgets entirely and be like, let's just find the best actor. Doesn't matter where on the planet they are. Let's just find the best actor for this one-line role. But you can't. That's not how movies and television work,
bummer.
Right? Yeah, major bummer. So each of those roles, the production has decided, okay, we're willing to spend money on this role because it's a major supporting role, or if it's television, this is a sweeps episode. We want the guest star to be somebody super fancy, whatever. And sometimes they're like, we just want the best available actor that lives within this market. And then down here in the Southeast, it's very different than almost any other market because it's a regional market, as opposed to being an Atlanta market. Atlanta is starting to pull more and more talent just solely from Atlanta because there is so many, talented people in all crafts areas who live and work in Atlanta.
They're migrating there like Mecca.
Yeah, totally. And they're migrating from LA and New York and all over the country. They're going there because they think there's more opportunity, and sometimes that is indeed the case. I think if they could move to Canada and work there, they can, but you can't, unless you are a dual citizen or whatever.
And that's effort. You have to really work at that.
Yeah. So, but Atlanta is their next best option as an American in terms of the varied and wonderful projects that are shot down here in the Southeast, and the fact that they're pulling all levels in each field from Atlanta or the region.
Well, one thing that I've found in production is that on our side of the fence as camera operators and stuff, if my peers who I went to school with, even though they live in Atlanta and they've been there for a long time, they can't break out of electrical. And the cameras 1, 2, and 3, like those positions are very highly sought after.
Sure.
And a lot of times the projects are being that I don't even call. I guess they're above the line talent. I guess camera operators are. I think they're kind of on the line, but they're being flown in from LA, and the key grips who are trying to strive to be camera 3 or the electrical who are clearly very good cinematographers or even DPs, they're just getting like glassed. Like, I guess that's the right word. They're getting glassed. It's like a glass ceiling, and they can't break out of that because the producers who still reside in LA just don't trust the Atlanta market.
Well, it's actually the reverse of that, right?
Okay.
That they have their people in LA that they trust implicitly.
Yeah.
And it's just easier. It's just easier to be like, just spend the money on this person who I know is going to be amazing, and I don't have to interview. I don't have to take a chance on somebody in a new market. You know, so within each department, they're going to say, okay, we have money for this, we have money for that, whatever. We can spread the pot around however they spread it. Yeah. And same thing with actors, and I know a lot of Southeast actors have the exact same complaint, which is like, I'm getting work, I'm getting co-stars, I'm getting all this stuff, but I want to get guest stars, I want to go out for series regulars, I want to do all of these things. And the reality is, we are looking for those roles down here, as well as wherever the other casting director is based.
Yeah.
So if they're based in LA or New York, if there's a role that we know that, if the producer's like, let's audition people, we're not going to make a straight offer to anybody, then we'll cover them down here as well. Because if you've got 2 actors, one in LA, one in Atlanta, and they're both great. They're different, of course, because they're different people, but they're both excellent. And either one would be great in the role. They're going to end up going with the Atlanta person because it's significantly cheaper. So Atlanta, Southeast actors do have a leg up from that standpoint. You just have to get to that level. It's not, you can't just be like, snap your fingers and get to it. And that's what's hard. It's a process, and you're going to hit glass ceilings and you're going to hit walls and you're going to be frustrated. And that goes for all of us in the entertainment industry that are trying to be seen as being more capable of doing the things that we know we can do. It's hard. It takes time. People have to get to know you. They have to start working with you, and you have to build up that trust. And that's the thing about people in LA, that they've been working together for 1,000,000 years, and that trust is there.
Yeah.
It's already there. And so if they have to spend a little extra money to bring that person in, it's sometimes that's easier.
Well, a partner of mine and I were film analysts. We do podcasts together.
Very nice.
We've noticed in our time paying attention to certain films, especially lately, that the films are being made for way less money. Way.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like
some.
Yeah.
I mean, Marvel.
Okay, we're not talking about Marvel.
Okay.
But like a film like Annihilation was made for just $40 million.
Sure.
Okay, and that sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money.
Right.
And we're seeing really high-profile actresses like Natalie Portman taking roles in this film, and I'm thinking to myself, wow, like she had to drop her rate.
Oh yeah.
By a significant, maybe 50% or more, to take that, so that they could just do the production of it.
Yeah.
How often do you see, I guess, ethereal actors or actresses doing this, where they're like, I just made God knows how much money off of the last project. I love this script. I want it, and then they even approach you for the project. How often does that happen?
It does. It happens on almost everything that I've ever worked on.
Really?
Oh yeah.
And so that cuts people who are just getting started right at the knees.
Oh yeah. And the thing is, if we can get, said Natalie Portman to cut her quote significantly and do this, that's a humongous win.
Big win.
As a cast director, as a filmmaker, how to that's amazing. That's the dream, right?
Yeah, high fives all around.
Really, I mean, my God, pop the champagne. Let's make a movie.
Call her, bring her in.
That's right. That doesn't always happen, but when an actor or an actress have a passion project like that. They've been helping to develop a story for a number of years. They read something and they are massively in love with it. They want to support a new filmmaker. I mean, there's so many different ways that they could sign on to something, significantly cut their quotes, and help elevate the project just by being in it, right? And yes, it takes opportunities away from lower level people, but it elevates that project, and then all of those people who are working on that project now are skyrocketed to the next thing.
It just puts them on a new shelf.
Yeah, so it's, it may hurt XYZ person, but it's helping these 300 people, so it's a catch-22 a little bit, where it sucks for certain people and it's amazing for others. I think when you are making a film or a television show, a piece of theater, a short, whatever, you want it to be the best possible thing it can be.
Yeah.
Right. And you will do, within limits, of course, almost whatever it takes to make that happen. You will write your letters of passion to the actor to get them to sign on. You will put together a director reel so that the actor can see that you are highly capable. You will make script revisions because you've gotten notes from somebody.
Yeah.
All of these things. And you hope that yours is the project that people fall in love with. That's the goal.
Yeah. How gray is the line getting between cinematic movie theater films and Netflix originals?
Oh boy. I mean, so I have caveat, I have not seen Roma, so I can't speak to
What? Seen what?
Roma.
I haven't seen it either. What
Okay,
is
good.
this? What's Roma?
This is what?
What's Roma?
Really?
Yeah.
It's
I'm an idiot savant, remember?
That's right. It's the Alfonso Cuarón movie that he did for Netflix, and it premiered in a couple of theaters, but it premiered on Netflix.
Yeah.
And he won like 4 Oscars for it.
Okay, so that shows me.
Yeah. So big deal, right? And so I haven't seen it. So I don't know in terms of the experience or the quality of watching it at home on your television versus seeing it in a movie theater.
It depends on the size of your TV.
Right. I can't speak to any of that. In terms of Netflix's content, in terms of their television shows and things like that, I think they have a lot of hits. They have a couple misses.
Big misses.
Yep. But so does every other network, streamer, cable, whatever. It's the risk you take.
Yeah.
I think they have changed things completely for the industry. And sometimes it's frustrating because they've changed things so completely. Sometimes it's frustrating that they have all of the money, all of it, and that's a little frustrating when you are, working on something that is not on Netflix or Amazon or HBO, and you're vying for the same actor who's got an offer for a show on one of those things.
Yeah.
Even if it's less money, they want the cachet of going there.
Well, it's ironic that now they have the money, that HBO has the money, when back in the day it was all the theaters had the money.
Yeah.
Or like the studios, I should say.
Right. Yeah. So it's just very different. I think it's amazing how they've pushed the bounds on just in television in general. I mean, I really think that they were a huge catalyst in changing content and how deep and dark and gross and envelope pushing things have gotten.
Yeah, I can't watch some stuff. I'm like, oh, Lord.
Yeah, me either. But I think they have said to movie writers and movie actors and movie directors and all of that, like, come play here. We are like doing a movie.
Mm-hmm. They're not like, they are.
Yeah, shooting 10 episodes of a TV show is essentially shooting a slightly longer movie.
It's like shooting 10 movies sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they have like Star Trek Discovery. My sister calls it STD.
Yeah.
I do
charming,
too.
super charming.
Yeah. I mean, 22 episodes or something like that, and they're all an hour long.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's network for you, right? A season on network television can be anywhere from 13 to 22 episodes, or more. I mean, when I was working on Criminal Minds, I think there was a season or two that we did 24 or 25 episodes. Is long.
Slogging.
Oh yeah. At the end, people have major senioritis where they cannot wait to get out of there.
Yeah.
Everybody's sick of each other. They're sick of the stories. They're sick of the work. Like they need a break. It's
sick
hard.
of the writers, probably.
Everything. They just need a break. And that's what is so enticing about streaming is only doing 10 episodes. You have half of your year to do something else. And that's why movie actors are doing TV, is that they can shoot their 10 episode season and then go do a movie or two.
Or just raise their child.
Or do whatever. I mean, there's just so many benefits to that. There's no burnout. I think from a writer standpoint, and I'm not a writer, so this is just my hypothesis, but from a writer standpoint, you aren't you can be more creative and you aren't reaching for storylines because you have to fill a certain episode count. I think there are clear arcs each season because they don't have to do quite so many episodes. You can pull in a director and they can direct 5 episodes instead of just 1, like they do in network. I mean, there's a lot of awesome things about it. They don't have residuals the same way that network stuff does, though. So they're, they have to. The unions need to figure that stuff out. That's a big issue. Because there's no real way for those of us who are not working at Netflix or at Amazon or whatever to count audience members and to count views and all of that stuff. It's hard to quantify what any sort of residual would be from it, and it's that can hurt writers, directors, actors, everybody who gets those residuals. So they got to work that stuff out.
I wouldn't want to work at Amazon.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know. I just don't feel like their content. I don't know. Joe Rogan's telling me that Amazon's content's really good, but no one watches it.
Well, it depends. I mean, have you seen Marvelous Mrs. Maisel?
Yeah, that's great. Oh, okay. That's the only one we'll watch.
Okay, well, there you go. That's one.
And we don't watch it on Amazon. We watch it on our Android TV box. Write that down. Android TV box. Everything's free. Everything is free.
There you go.
Yeah, I don't know if you have one.
I don't.
You'll probably be outraged.
I don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
We're still on cable.
It's the Koreans.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about them?
Oh, good.
Yeah. We were talking about Netflix. Steven Spielberg just had a big rant about how, I can't remember the name of the movie.
It was Roma.
No, was it Roma? There was another one. No, I thought it was, I might have read it wrong. There was another film that won, and it was I thought I watched it after he said it, and I was like, it wasn't Roma. Whatever he was talking about. Okay. In that instance, I was like, that was so good. And it was off Netflix. But he was saying that they should only be up for Tonys or for Emmys and not for Oscars.
Right. Emmys and Golden Globes, I think.
Well, I love Steven Spielberg's work, but I think he's a snob. No offense, Steven. But I was sitting here thinking that was one of the best films I've seen in a long time, and he's telling me that it's not worth an Oscar.
Well, I understand where he's coming from. I don't think he's a snob. I think he has, like you were saying before, right? You fell in love with film because you shot on film.
Yeah.
You loved seeing that image come to life in the dark room.
Yeah.
So are all of these filmmakers that have been shooting on film.
Especially Steven. I'm calling him by his first name like I know him. Mr. Spielberg, I apologize for calling you a snob.
That's right. But that, you can understand where they're coming from. They had to work their asses off to get a movie in a theater.
Yeah.
Not saying that it's not difficult to get something on Netflix, but it's back then and still now to a certain extent, to get a major motion picture financed, sold, distributed, blah, 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 shot, whatever, was a big fucking deal.
Yeah.
It's still a big fucking deal. And so I understand where he's coming from. I don't necessarily agree. I don't know that I disagree. Right. Again, I haven't seen Rome. I haven't seen anything else that he was talking about. So I can't speak to the specific movie, but I think I understand the preciousness of seeing a movie in a theater.
Yeah.
I feel it 1,000,000%. I mean, it's such a special experience as opposed to watching something at home on your couch. Mm-hmm. That said, I don't think that something that is distributed by Netflix is any less quality than something that is distributed by Paramount 20th or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just a different medium.
Yeah, and if you go and you compare the people on set for either project, they're in many cases identical.
Yeah, sure.
The professionals are just as good. Some of them cross over.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a really tough call. I wouldn't want to be in the position of having to decide, no, we're going to say Netflix can't be up for Oscars, or yes, Steven Spielberg, shut up. I can't imagine being in that position.
Yeah,
I'm glad I'm not.
I'm sure it would ruin you.
Yeah, I can't even imagine. It would break my heart. But yeah, it's an interesting paradigm of what's to come. And, I know a lot of people who disagreed with Steven Spielberg were saying, like, the fact that Netflix is producing movies now, and same with Amazon's distributing movies too, mm-hmm. is it makes it so that more people are getting opportunities to make films and have them be seen.
Yeah. Well, part of my problem with, the old way of thinking is that, get a job, get something steady, forget your dreams, go get a factory job. Everything is being automated. And so for me, it's like, even these cameras, we're automating our cameras. You don't know that, but there's no camera operator behind that camera or that camera or that camera. There are no operators.
Right.
So that's 3 jobs gone. Guess how much money that saved me? $2,400
Sure.
is saved because we're not operating. There's no operator there.
Right.
And so for me, it's like all of these technical positions, whether they're in or out of the industry, are completely being automated completely. And so if you're not creating, you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And if you're not, I feel like we kind of need to change the way we raise our children. We need to change the way we educate our children on what it means to be useful.
That's interesting.
What makes you useful? Do your hands make you useful? Driving a truck, does that make you useful anymore? Not anymore because of Elon Musk.
Well, I think we still got a little ways to go there, but yeah, I see what you're getting at.
You have 10 years, Erica. You have 10 years before Elon takes over the highway. 10, maybe 15. He's building tunnels under LA right now.
Oh, no. Well,
it's scary. It's moving really fast. And I feel like our ideas are more valuable than our physical characteristics, unless we're playing soccer or football. But what do our athletes do when they're done?
Right.
What skills will they possess after their 26th birthday?
Right.
And if they're not creative and they're not finding ways to use their, or finding ways to use their personality to best suit them, they're going to run out of opportunity. NFL commentators, that's a competitive industry.
Oh, yeah.
Steve Smith, a local celebrity of ours, he was doing that for a minute, and I think he realized that the writing just wasn't on the wall. There were too many people in the hen house. He wasn't going to get in.
Yeah.
And if he was, it was going to be a fight. So he went on and did something else.
Yeah.
So, how do we mitigate that? Do you have any ideas?
No, I mean, if I did, can you imagine I would just rule the world?
You might anyway.
No, I mean, I think I'm a firm believer in that you have to follow your passion. You hope your passion can make you money.
Yeah.
It can't always, sometimes the passion lives in a hobby and you sustain yourself some other way. But in terms of jobs, I think the entertainment industry is one of the few places that is a little bit recession proof. I mean, not entirely. Certainly we've had our ups and downs, and you guys know, living in North Carolina, that it can go down depending on politics, and it's a state to state thing. Los Angeles is dealing with the exact same thing. They had a huge gut to their tax incentives, and there's a lot of people who were working there forever who couldn't get jobs because all the jobs are going to Canada or to Atlanta or wherever.
What a weird situation that must be in.
Yes.
To have moved there and then 10 years later realizing that the industry is drying up in SoCal.
Yeah, I mean, it's a major disappointment if you put your roots down there, you worked your butt off there, you raised your family there, and now you've been in this for 30 years and you can't get hired because there aren't enough jobs for you.
Yeah.
That's really fucking hard. It's a big deal, and it's happening. These incentives come and go all over the place. North Carolina is obviously very familiar with it. Michigan lost all theirs. Nothing shoots up there anymore unless you want to be in Michigan. Yeah.
Not in the winter.
Yeah, New Orleans.
It's beautiful though in the summer.
Yeah, sure. New Orleans had a ton after Katrina.
Yeah.
It's gone way down. And as has their production. So it's. In terms of the job market, though, you can either chase the jobs to the next market, to the next place.
It's like joining the circus.
You have to just decide what you want to do. What do you want to prioritize, right? Do you want to stay in this field? Do you want to keep working at this job in this industry? Or do you want to parlay your skills into something else?
Yeah.
And that's a very scary realization to have to make, and a choice to have to make. But sometimes that's what it comes to. Do you retire early? Do you pick up a job driving an Uber on the weekends to help sustain yourself so that you can wait to find the next job in Los Angeles or whatever market you're in? It's tough. I think, so much of the entertainment industry is reliant on people. We need our agents and managers. We need our directors. We need our writers. We need our actors. We need our casting directors.
You can't technically automate them. Well, you can, I guess.
I mean, to an extent, but you can't. I mean, it's a craft, right?
You still have to have the voices.
You've got to have the
doing
voices.
Animations or
yeah,
something.
I mean, there's so much. It's gotten easier to do things from remotely, which is amazing.
Yeah.
It's gotten a little more affordable to make something like this, where you don't have to spend nearly as much money as you would to produce it. And so more people have more access to doing things like this. So there are benefits.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of, how long do you want to be in this before you want to do something else with your life? Do you want to, hopefully you succeed and you can continue working and making money in your chosen field.
Yeah.
But if you can't, or it feels like it's taking forever, or it's taking a toll on your emotional health or whatever, what else is there for you that you can use these skills some other way? And I think the entertainment industry actually develops people that have interesting specific skill sets that they can parlay into other things.
Yeah.
It might take a little extra schooling, it might take a little extra time to get into a new field, but there are technical skills that you can use for other things. There are speaking skills, person to person skills. The fact that producers have to literally do this, they are the parent to 300 people on a set.
Yeah.
And manage all of those people. Those people are great managers. There are ways to communicate your skill set to another field if that's what you want to do, if it's necessary. Hopefully you can just follow your passion, whatever it is. And you never have to worry about any of facing that challenge of what am I going to do now?
Yeah, in your case, when you're facilitating people, you really can't replace tender love and care when you're working with someone who has needs.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talk about, so much stuff is done via self-tape audition now. And that is something that actors are doing in their homes or in a self-tape studio or whatever. Yeah. And somebody recently said something like, well, do we need casting directors anymore? And the answer to that is yeah. Somebody has to choose all those people who are going to audition. Somebody has to give notes to all those people who are going to audition. Somebody has to watch all of those tapes and decide which are the ones that are worth showing to the director, the producer, the writer, or team of people. And there is still a very big finesse. I just cast this young woman, got her original tape in, and it was fine, but she needed an adjustment. Gave her an adjustment. She did great with it. Sent that tape forward, the new tape forward. Producers liked her, thought she was good. She was in the mix. And then it kind of wavered and waffled, and they were kind of leaning towards somebody else. And then she wrote a note of passion, sent it to me. I sent it to the director. The director was like, let's get her on tape again. Let's give her some more notes, see what else she can do. Yeah. Got her on tape again. She took the notes beautifully, and she got the job. God. And she called me yesterday, and she was like, if you hadn't seen something in that first tape, there's no way I would be cast in this role. And that's what we are there to do. We have that discerning eye. We know what to say to help tweak it, to get it where it needs to be.
It's like a diamond in the rough.
Yeah, and can anybody do that? I guess if you practice at it and
I don't think anyone can. I think it takes a certain type.
Well, and it I think especially what I've experienced. Mostly is that it's the young new directors, the young new filmmakers who are fresh out of school or whatever, and they're so idealistic, and God bless them. They want total creative control. Mm-hmm. They want to see everything. They're so excited. They're so passionate.
Sounds like me.
Oh my God! Well, they just can't wait to just sink their teeth into everything, and they want to see every single audition.
No, Lord have mercy.
And they burn out.
Yeah.
Right? They watch however many they can get through.
You walk in, they're asleep at their desk,
and they're just like. They're like, okay, just send me your selects from now on. You have to learn that
they're micromanaging.
Well, they don't know that though. They think that they are involved.
Yeah.
Right? That they're just, this is their baby. They finally get to produce it. They finally get to shoot it. And they are so excited. It really comes from a place of enthusiasm. But they don't realize just how difficult it is to go through that many auditions and be able to make a choice from it.
Yeah, but also they probably just have a lack of trust because they don't know you.
Sure, yeah, totally.
So
they're not, a lot of filmmakers who come out of these programs don't know what the casting process entails.
And they don't realize how many people are involved in a production.
They don't know. And it's, almost none of these programs talk about casting and what we do and how we function.
Yeah.
So they have to learn. We have to help teach them what we do and what it means and why we can't have an actor come in 5 times for $100 a day, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
But that's, there are a lot of things that we do that I think sometimes people assume they can do because they're like, well, I can just pick I can pick faces out of this and I can watch tapes and choose one and whatever. And it's so much more than that. It's so much more layered, and it's about the relationships. It's about knowing what adjective or verb to give an actor so that they know exactly what to do and how to adjust. It's a lot of those things, and that comes with the experience of learning the casting process and learning how to be a casting director.
Yeah. I think it was Josh Beveridge in my last interview. He said that 800 people worked on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. 800.
I bet.
And so it's like, and clearly all of those people were seasoned vets. But like coming out of school and actually having that opportunity to direct or build your own project, that seems like an anomaly of its own.
Sure.
When you're working with someone so young, like how do you mitigate them? What do you do to softly say to them, hey, back off?
You just have to guide them. I think one of the things that we learn early on in the process is how to maintain a level of professionalism while still getting our point across.
Yeah.
Because I could be like, dude, shut up! You're not going to bring this actor back a 5th time.
Shut your fucking face.
Yeah. Sure, I might be thinking that.
Face palm.
Right, but I'm going to say, instead, I'm going to say, they've come in enough times. It's going to feel disrespectful to them. They're going to start to lose passion for the project if they have to come in a 5th time.
Yeah.
And that's the truth of it, right? I have to explain it. I can't just say they're not coming in again. I have to explain why. Because they're learning the process. They have to learn the boundaries of the process and what is appropriate and what isn't.
Yeah.
And they'll know, they'll have common sense to a lot of that stuff. But otherwise, we'll have to just show them and tell them.
Yeah. My background is in motorsport.
Cool.
I spent 16 years in motorsport, and that's very commercial. It's very loud and energetic, very documentary stuff. Not really creatively. It's creative, sure, but it's not film.
Sure.
In my industry, I came across a lot of toxic environment. I'm sure you've had to manage this yourself. How do you, again, mitigate that toxicity? And have there ever been any situations where you've completely had to remove yourself from it?
No, gratefully, no. We can manage and mitigate everything that happens in our process, in the things that happen in our audition room, for the actors, if they're sitting down just to meet, whatever, we can have a hand in that process. We don't always. You've heard all the horror stories, right? And I can guarantee you the casting director didn't know any of that shit was going on. All right.
Yeah.
But anything that happens in our room within our bounds, we have control over. We can stop something from happening. That's what we're there for. What then happens when an actor goes to set is a different story. I've heard actors who we've had a completely lovely, wonderful experience from our end of things.
Getting them in.
With the actors, with our creative team, whatever, and then production begins, and either the actor is toxic or somebody on set is.
Yeah.
And we don't always hear about that because, again, we're at the beginning of the process. We're in pre-production. We're not, sometimes by the time production starts, we're gone. We're on to the next thing. So we don't always hear those stories. Sometimes people don't tell those stories, as everybody is now very aware. I have heard of people being fired, both, again, actors and other parts of the creative team because of behavior, language, whatever. And again, some of that stuff we don't know about until after the fact, and we can't mitigate it. We can do whatever we can to help that person, whoever was wronged, go, I don't want to say get over it, because that sounds horribly harsh.
Yeah,
but
I get it.
Just make sure that they can move past it and continue working, in whatever their field is. But we, here's an example. I worked on Criminal Minds for 3 years. I don't even remember how many episodes, 60-some episodes of Criminal Minds, the original Criminal Minds. And it's now finishing its 15th season, right? It's a hugely long-running show. It's unbelievably
I've never
long-running.
watched it either.
Yeah, it's fine. It's totally fine. A lot of people have it.
I'm like, what? Is it like the movie? It's Criminal Minds, but the movie?
No.
No, okay.
No. So a lot of the crew that are on that show now in season 15 have been on it since the very beginning.
Steady job.
Incredibly.
Lucky.
So when I was there was a DP, and he was there forever. I think he was there up until maybe 2 years ago, maybe just even last year. He was perfectly nice to me, super friendly, very kind, very professional. Everything was great. And I think it was either last year or 2 years ago, there was this huge article that came out. It was after Me Too started.
Yeah.
So sometime after that, this article came out where a bunch of camera crew, complained that he had harassed them.
Like physically or sexually?
Both, all.
Or verbally?
Touching on set. I don't think anything.
Like Joe Biden touching, or like
I don't
touching?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't want to put words into anybody's mouth.
I think Joe's just really cool. He's just a nice uncle. He just wants to give you a massage.
He doesn't know.
He doesn't know.
He's working. He's got to work on it.
Yeah.
But verbal abuse, the whole thing. I had zero idea that was happening. But then one of my friends who had been in the camera department posted saying, this is 100% accurate. I was trying to tell people about this for a long time, blah, blah, all this stuff.
Bummer.
And I was like, oh my God. There are so many ways for these things to happen that sadly we don't know about, and we don't find out about them for years, if ever. And that's awful. It's awful. The fact that, thankfully, I don't know if it's thankfully
There's no
or
wood
what.
here. You'll just have to deal with it. Knock on the coast.
Yeah. No actors who we sent to that set ever complained about something like that. So, unfortunately, he was just doing it to the camera crew, but fortunately, he was just doing it to the camera crew. I don't,
It's weird, camera crew.
I know. What's the upside of that? I don't know.
Yeah, they're all like
I don't know
sweaty,
if there's
and their butt cracks are showing. They're like plumbers.
I don't know. Some of these people are very good looking, but that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's when it's in our room, when it's part of our process, we can mitigate it. We can guide it. We can keep people comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
Once it's out of our hands, it's out of our hands.
Yeah,
and we hope that everybody behaves professionally.
It's all you can do, and you're not their mommy.
Yeah.
You're only the mommy to Harrison.
Yes, that's right.
So.
But we will do whatever we can to make sure our actors are safe, that they're going to a safe set, any of that stuff. But likewise, we have to make sure that we're not sending a complete lunatic to set in terms of the actor. You don't want, the number of issues that come with that. And we've had those people. Everybody has hired that person where then...
drug addict or...
that's an extreme. Usually they're an asshole.
Okay.
They're just late. They're mean to people.
Self-absorbed.
Yes, they can't remember their lines.
Because they didn't study them.
Or
they come in hungover.
Yeah. So, there's those stories too. But fortunately, those are very few and far between.
All right, Erica. So what are your hopes for the local industry in Western North Carolina?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I told you this before. I have loved meeting all of the filmmaking and artistic professionals that live here. It is so wide ranging in terms of what people's skills are and what they're bringing to the table. There's just this pool of amazing talent here.
Yeah.
And that's amazing. And very exciting and very inspiring. I would hope that there are more tax incentives to bring people back to North Carolina. I know that they're going to want to go to Wilmington because the original filmmaking infrastructure is there.
No, they won't.
But I think, like 3 Billboards, things like that, when people want to shoot in Western North Carolina, they come here because of what Western North Carolina affords in terms of the landscape, the people, the towns, the vibes, the whole thing.
Yeah.
And I would hope that we could sort of build up something just as strong here that they have in Wilmington.
Yeah.
It's like there's such different vibes, the two places. It would be great to bring some of that work.
Well, it seems like Wilmington has really struggled to keep projects consistent.
Well, that's the incentives too. The other thing with Wilmington, and I'm saying this only because I worked on a show that shot in Wilmington, it is a pain in the ass to get to Wilmington.
Which show?
Revolution.
Okay.
Our first season, we shot the pilot in Atlanta, we shot season 1 in Wilmington, season 2 in Austin, Texas.
And was that because of the show's actual agenda, or was it just
Nope.
because of the incentives?
So Atlanta, I think, maybe had just started their incentive program then. This was back in 2012, early 2012. I can't remember why they chose Wilmington. I think because there was availability on the stages and things like that there, and they had the infrastructure, they had the crew, but we had a million weather problems. A million.
In Wilmington?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Yes, and it was impossible to get people into Wilmington because it's 2 flights, no matter where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, their airport's about as small as Asheville's.
Right. So we had all kinds of schedule issues because the actor couldn't make it in because of weather, mechanical, or whatever.
Awful.
They missed their connecting flights.
Yeah.
It happened all the time. And then on top of that, so the crew there at that time, I think they were used to Dawson's Creek and One Tree Hill and some of the
early 2000s.
Yeah, they were used to sort of the easier going character pieces, that kind of thing. Nothing big visual effects or anything like that. Revolution was sci-fi and heavy in fight scenes, heavy in effects, heavy in all of that stuff. And it was grueling. It was a very, very grueling show to work on. And we would lose crew by the hour.
What, by attrition or just?
They would quit. It was too much.
They were like, fuck this, I'm out?
Pretty much. Some of them got fired, but a lot of them were just bailed. They were like, I did not sign up for this.
I guess there was some toxicity on set.
I'm sure, and everybody's stressed. It's a first-year show.
Yeah.
Like I said, it was a grueling show. It was a very difficult show. I think anybody who worked on that show in any capacity will tell you that.
Okay.
It was difficult. There are a lot of ups and downs. There were budget issues. There were effects issues, in terms of budget and what we can afford and what they actually wanted to put on screen. It was difficult, but a huge part of that is that they had to continually replace crew because they couldn't or didn't want to. I'm not sure what the case was exactly. Go at that pace because they were always working overtime. They were for sure working more than 12-hour days. They were always getting their calls forced, all of that stuff, and that's not what they were used to, and maybe not what they wanted to do. And so they were out.
And they probably didn't believe in the show anymore.
Well, yeah, and again, when it's a first-year show, you don't know what it's going to be, and sometimes life is too short. And maybe that's the case, or maybe they weren't performing and they got fired because of it, or there was just a huge turnover rate on the ground in Wilmington. It was nuts. And the reason they moved it to Austin is that they just didn't want to deal with getting people in and out of Wilmington anymore. They didn't want to deal with the same weather issues. They didn't want to deal with...
Well, Austin's like Asheville. It's very desirable.
Yes.
It's very hip.
Oh, and they loved it. I mean, one of the cast members bought a house there and lives there now. The show ended in 2014.
Why not?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it was a much better production experience for them in season 2 from that standpoint. But that's the thing, right? Like right now, I think they're shooting Swamp Thing. in Wilmington.
It's coming back.
It's coming back. So, but they also there's a new show on Netflix called OBX or called Outer Banks.
Oh gosh, it's like the OC or whatever.
I have no idea.
Or is that the right word?
Yeah.
It's like the OC. That was an eye roller.
It might be. I have no idea what it's
I hope they
gonna
don't try to make it too cool.
be. I don't know, but it's not shooting in North Carolina. Shooting in Charleston
Okay, that's weird.
because of the bathroom bill.
Yeah, that makes. I get it.
Yeah. So
That's not even a thing anymore. I did go. I was down in the Benson area, Benson, North Carolina. It's a lovely place. And I went into a bathroom, and the men's was locked, and I'm like, okay, whatever, I'll go in the women's. And I came out, and the chick behind the counter was cussing me out because I went in the girls' bathroom, and I was like, sorry, that's weird.
Wow.
So weird that people really enforced it.
Right.
I thought that was crazy. I just thought it was something that people were just arguing about. I never thought I'd see it firsthand.
Right. I really don't have any. I mean, the times that I've come to North Carolina were either before the bathroom bill or I came to Asheville, where Asheville has always been like, this is an any gender bathroom.
Yeah, it's like, just wash your hands.
Yeah.
You know?
Don't be disgusting.
Yeah.
But no, I think, there is a lot that Western North Carolina can really provide in terms of the talent that's here. The thing that's lacking are stages. There's got to be ample crew. There's got to be a place to shoot other than just locations.
Well, and like we're doing here, I mean, there is ample crew. I can promise you there is ample crew in Western NC, specifically in Asheville, in Hickory especially, Charlotte and Winston also. But how do we recruit the stages? How do we get them built?
That is an excellent question. Somebody's got to invest. Somebody has to. I think it's going to take the tax incentives coming back and somebody seeing that it's worth investing the money here.
Yeah.
Otherwise, right now there's no point. There's not enough incentives to draw a production here. So anything that shoots in Wilmington is getting all the incentives. So
there aren't many. This is my thinking. South Carolina is really pushing their incentives to become better.
Yeah.
They're even, I think, in some cases, much better than North Carolina's right now.
Yeah.
North Carolinians snub their noses to South Carolinians all the time.
Yes.
And Carolina fans in North Carolina have no idea that South Carolinians are Gamecock fans, but they're Carolina. Right? And so it's like there's this weird competitive nature. But for me, it's like if North and South Carolina could combine their efforts, especially with a scene like Wilmington's, you're only 45 minutes from the border. I used to live in Wilmington. Yeah. We would drive down there to get fireworks every year.
Right.
Okay? And in Asheville's case, same thing. Hour to Greenville.
Yeah.
Okay? And so it's like, if somehow our film incentive programs could coincide with each other, I think together, the two states, the Carolinas, the Carolina Panthers, it makes sense. Or we could somehow create a leverage point that could tip the scales back in our favor. And then we could have
would be
dual citizenship type of
reciprocity.
Yeah.
That I have no idea how that would work, but it sounds genius, and you should tell somebody. But no, I think it makes perfect sense. I don't know. So they're completely two different governments, two different states.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that would look like exactly in terms of making that happen.
Sounds like a lot of math.
And a lot of people being nice to each other.
Yeah.
But I think it makes amazing sense, and it would make the Carolinas very competitive with Atlanta and Louisiana, and that would be a really big deal. I just don't, I don't know. I mean, you're saying how competitive they are with each other. Are they going to work together? I don't know.
Well, you say they, but we're Carolinians. I mean,
sure.
And if I'm actually, there's a good filmmaker out of Greenville. I can't remember his name right now, but my uncle and my aunt use him all the time. I mean, they have no qualms crossing the border to use a filmmaker.
No, of course not.
Like, it makes no sense for us politically. I guess it's a problem, but for the average Joes living and working in this region,
it's the people. It's the people who aren't working in the industry, right? So it's the taxpayers of South Carolina and the taxpayers of North Carolina that aren't working in the industry and don't see the benefits. Don't, whatever. Understand the benefits, I guess, is the better way to say that. That are like, you're combining these two. Why? How is that going to benefit me? How is that going to lower my taxes? How is that going to make my life better? That's where it starts to, you start to meet resistance. It's a campaign that would have to be waged on convincing people and showing them what it means and how it changes things. And I think Georgia is an amazing model for that. I mean, I don't live in Atlanta. I can't speak to what it's like to be a Georgian, but the influx of money into that state from the entertainment industry is mind-boggling.
Thanks, Oprah.
I mean, it's mind-boggling. So I think if people can look at that as a model of how that might increase people's, emotional happiness, increase the likelihood that they will stay in that state and not move elsewhere, keep their money in that state, keep their roots there, it would be amazing if some of these incentives came back. And even if that meant that they were shared with South Carolina to promote it.
I just wish these incentives came back because we could put a lot of that money back into education.
Absolutely. I mean, there's so many things that you could put that money back into.
I mentioned earlier that like the arts programs that I had when I was in high school, this was 96 to 2001. I had photography classes, art classes, film classes. I had information highway classes that were media studies classes, theory classes. And when I got back from Salt Lake, I went back to my old high school just because I had to for some reason. And I realized that every single one of them had been cut. And there was maybe an art class, like a painting, traditional art class, but the other classes were gone. And it's a shame. And when speaking about South Carolina, my mom taught in South Carolina at the end of her career. She taught handicapped children. And she just talked about how deprived the students were in South Carolina. And for me, North Carolina might not have the film incentive program, and we might be suffering from that. But there are a lot of incentives that go into the healthcare and sciences in North Carolina that really stimulate our economy, where South Carolina is left holding the bag. And for me, for our region to truly flourish, we can't just let the redheaded stepchild go by the waywater, however you want to say that. We can't let them just fall to the wayside. We need to care for our brothers, sisters, and cousins in South Carolina just as much as we do in North Carolina. I might get some hate mail for that.
Well, I totally understand where you're coming from, and I think it would be a beautiful, wonderful thing if the states work together to do that. I just don't know what that looks like.
Well, even if we could work with Georgia.
Yeah. Well, Georgia's not ready to give up. I mean, they are rolling in it. They don't want to give any of that up. Why should they?
Why should they? Yeah, I know. What can an actor or actress do all on their own to better their personal chances of being cast in a film or television series?
They got to be in class. Everything starts with their technical foundation. If the opportunity comes and they're not ready for it from a technical standpoint, then there's no point. Everything begins with their foundation of whatever technique they like to study. There's a million different acting techniques. Not a million, many. Whatever that is, they need to take it seriously as a craft, as a muscle, and study it and learn it and be in it constantly. Take breaks, of course, for your mental health, for your sanity, whatever, but if the technical foundation is weak, if their voice isn't strong enough, if their enunciation is messy, if their movement is stiff and stifled, if they don't know proper business practices for their own career, things like that, that's going to hurt them when the opportunity does arise. But everything starts with their acting technique. They have to be in class. They have to take it seriously. When they take it seriously, we take them seriously.
Do you have any advice for production crew members, how they can help themselves a bit better as well? Like, what can we do on our end if we're behind the camera?
I would assume the same thing. I don't know what the process is in terms of getting hired for crew, but work at it, make connections. The number one thing I learned in this industry very early on is that you can't do it by yourself. It's a business of relationships, and that is 1,000,000% true. You have to hone those relationships, hold on to them, keep in touch with people, support your peers, show up, work for free sometimes. You have to build your resume, build your connections, build your skill set.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say is just, do all the same things. I just don't know what that would translate to in terms of crew.
Yeah. If you could go back in time and give yourself advice at 21, what would you say to yourself?
Oh, it would definitely be you can't do it on your own. I was like, I got here all by myself. I got all my internships. I'm going to do
That's
everything
what
by
you
myself.
said?
Yes. Well, I mean, not out loud.
I was the same way in my 20s. I was so cocky.
Yes. I was like, anybody's going to want to hire me. I'm a good worker. I have all this experience. I'm graduating from the USC Film School, blah, 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 blah.
USC.
Yeah, well, the Southern California, not the other.
You weren't a
SC.
Gamecock? Oh, bummer.
No, I was a Trojan. And I got in there on my own. Nobody paid for it. Where the USC is embroiled in that whole scandal. College thing. Yeah, okay.
I'm aware.
Okay, just checking. I was just like, I got this. I can do it.
And you realized it was like really hard.
Oh God, no. I mean, immediately I was like, what am I doing? Who do I call? How am I going to get a job ever?
Yeah.
And so I think I told you, right, that Ronnie Yeskel was what piqued my interest in casting. My very first real job in casting, not an internship, was with Ronnie Yeskel.
Nice.
And I got it after struggling to get interviews anywhere. And I finally, she posted looking for an assistant. And I emailed her and I wrote this long, stupid cover letter.
Right.
And at the very end I said, and if nothing else, it would be great to meet some family.
Because you were trying to pull that. What's that called when you're what's that word when
you're trying to pull the string?
Yeah, or when you're brought in because you're family.
Oh, nepotism.
You were trying to get that nepotism swing.
Yeah. So I got the interview, and Ronnie's amazing, but she has the best poker face of anybody. You just cannot read this woman at all. And so we're sitting there, and I'm interviewing for this job, and her associate is sitting there too, and he's really asking me all the questions, and she's just kind of watching me. Mm-hmm. And finally, after about 5-7 minutes, she was like, "So how are we related?" And I was like, "Well, my grandma's sister, blah blah blah," and I explained the whole thing to her, and she just looked at me and she goes, she starts dialing the phone on speakerphone, and her mom picks up. She goes, "Mom, do you know Marion Landau, who's my grandmother?" And her mom was like, "Oh yeah, that's so-and-so's sister-in-law. You've met her at blah, 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 whatever."
You were like, whoo.
I know. And she hung up the phone, and I walked out of there, and I'd gotten that job. But if that isn't the perfect example of how you need your connections, how you can't do it on your own, I don't know what is.
Hashtag nepotism.
Really, like I got, and every job from there came from that one. So the job I got after I worked with Ronnie came because I had worked with Ronnie. The job I got after that was with April, which came because I had the previous job. I mean, all of them, and it all started with Ronnie. I mean, it's kind of a magical thing.
It's funny how you saw her when you were a kid on like credits and
stuff.
stuff.
Yes, it was amazing.
And then it came full circle, and it worked.
It did. God bless it. It worked.
When I moved to Salt Lake, there were tons of Lloyds out there, all of them Mormon. Well, I've met them. My mom's a genealogist, and I'm like, "Where are you from?" I wanted to know about them, and they were assholes. All of them. Almost all of them, a few were okay. But they were completely like shut down to meeting another Lloyd.
Sure. And they had enough. They had as many as they wanted.
Yes. I entered a photo contest for this like ski event, and apparently like 3 Lloyds had won in the past 4 years. And several Lloyds also had made it to like the top 3. And I was like, Lloyd, whoa. And then it's like that when I signed up and I sent in my submissions, they were like, "Fuck this guy. We don't need another Lloyd in here." So I was like, "Damn it." So
well, you know,
the opposite of nepotism. What do you call it? I don't know. What are your hopes and dreams for your son?
Oh gosh. Oh, you're gonna get me all emotional.
Good.
I want him to live in a world where people are kinder to each other, where the climate isn't going to eat us all alive in a matter of minutes, where he's safe from guns at school, at the movies, at a concert, whatever. Yeah. I want him to be able to live a happy life that is just free from so much anger and vileness that is out there right now. It's really hard. You know, I literally found out I was pregnant with him the night of the 2016 election.
Oh, Lord.
And that was a tough night for me personally. Not because I was pregnant, but because of the election.
I saw it coming a mile away.
Oh man. I mean, it was the best day and the worst day of my life because I had just gotten confirmation that I was pregnant and I had wanted to have a child.
Donald Trump's president.
And then Donald Trump was president. And I was just like, what am I bringing a child into? And it's way, I don't want to say it's way worse, but it's way worse than I imagined it being in terms of the vitriol that's out there and how this has amplified that anger and that hatred so much. And it's very disheartening from a lot of levels, and I don't need to go too much into the politics or anything, but I just want him to live his life and love whoever he wants to love and do whatever job he wants to do and go to school and be safe and not worry about the world ending in a hellfire of climate explosion.
Or nuclear bombs.
I mean, just really, like, that is all I want for him. I don't care where he lives. I don't care if he decides that he wants to live in Europe or Australia or whatever.
You'll move there too. Probably.
Yeah, I just want him to be safe and happy and healthy, and that's it. You know, and it's just, there's so many what ifs and huge question marks right now, and that's terrible. I mean, it's like, you know, you're bringing a child into that, and you know, we're talking about, you know, do we want to expand our family any further? And it's like, okay, well, this is what the world is like now, you know, and that's a really difficult thing, because there's so many wonderful things about being a parent, but you want to put your child into a world where they're going to breathe clean air, and, you know, and you're not going to have to worry about them when they're at school and their safety and things like that.
Well, my thought is that, you know, you're like, I don't know if I should bring another kid in the world, but if you're raising your son to be that way, I've even said this to my sister. She's making decisions on her own. I don't care what she does.
Sure.
But it's like, if you're creating another version of you, a version of you will completely obliterate 10 negative personalities.
I mean, you hope they're like me.
Right. And if anything, you can train them to become snipers, and then then you're fine. But you know what I mean? Like, if you're creating, I feel like good outweighs evil 10 to 1.
Of course. And obviously, you know, expanding our family has so much more to do than what's happening in the world. But it's something you have to think about as they grow up, you know, and what it's going to be like for them. You know, I feel lucky enough that I had a little bit of the analog childhood and a little bit of the digital childhood.
You're a Xennial like me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I had a great childhood. I had an amazing childhood.
Yeah, it was
and
fun.
I don't know that the millennials had the same experience that we did.
Maybe not.
You know, and I don't know what it's going to be like for my kid as he's going into his teenage.
But people talk a lot of shit about the millennials, but I think they're really smart.
Well, they're changing things. They're the ones who are changing things.
But what makes them really aware and cognizant is social media. And yeah, they're down here on their phone and they're acting like they're not paying attention to you, but they're fully aware of all of the bad things happening because this device is in their hands. Right. And so they know before they're supposed to know. Yeah. And their innocence is taken from them at a very early age. Yeah. But with that said, I think a lot of them, they might not have the personal skills that we have right away. Sure. And it's something that they probably have to work on in their 30s. But I wasn't perfect until, I'm not still not, but I wasn't really good until I was like 33. Yeah. It took my father passing away for me to really wake the fuck up.
Yeah. You know I mean, there's always some major life event like that, right? Where you're like, this is the thing that changed me. Yeah. You know? And
it was like my father passed and then my daughter was born. And then I was like really good. Yeah. And it took those two major experiences, both equally as powerful, for me to really break free of. I felt like I shed a skin, like my snake skin, almost.
Yeah, sure.
So.
And that's how it goes with anybody, you know. Yeah. And sometimes you do that multiple times in a single lifetime.
We'll do it again in a decade.
There you go. You know? Exactly. That's how it goes.
When they go to college, oh Lord, you know, 2 decades, right? 2 decades. Yes. They can stay home. They can stay home. What's your favorite thing about living in Western North Carolina?
Oh man, I just have, first of all, the people here have been unbelievably welcoming. I mean, I didn't know what it was going to be like to move across country as an adult with a child. And when I went to LA, I was 18 years old and I was in school. So I had that nice little bubble of safety of this is where you meet your friends, and this is how you get to know LA within the bounds of this campus and things like that. And the friends that I have in LA are people I've known since I was 18 years old. So it's, we have these amazing long friendships, and I didn't know what it was going to be like completely moving away from that. And what it would be like now with this. We moved when our son was 6 months old, so with an infant. Yeah. And we moved in the dead of winter. So there was that too. But we had...
It wasn't winter in LA.
It was not. It was fire season in LA, actually.
So you got out there right in time.
So we...
Fire season. Yeah. That's creepy.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, we have made amazing friends. Everybody has been so kind. Our neighbors are just outstanding. I get to work from home, which is something that I really never envisioned myself being able to do. Yeah. As a casting director,
it has its own challenges, especially with a toddler.
It has some big challenges, big challenges. But it also means that because I'm not commuting anywhere, I get to see my kid more often. I get to see more of my husband. Yeah. So that has been a huge change because in LA, I would go 12 miles and it would take me an hour and a half. So
till those tunnels are built.
You're losing hours of your day to that stuff, and so that has changed for me a lot too. And there are lots of things that I miss about being in LA, and I of course miss my friends a lot. But there are so many wonderful things about being here. Just having the support of having a set of grandparents nearby is amazing. I've been really lucky that my parents have been able to come out and visit a lot. So they've shown up more than maybe that it would be easier to get,
I saw pictures of the Biltmore and they're right on top of their feed. Yes. I didn't dive deep. I just saw right at the surface. Yeah. Bowling alley.
Yep. Yeah. So, they're, when they come to LA, it's more expensive. It's harder to...
And they may like it so much, they end up coming down and staying.
We'll see. I'm not holding my breath.
Several of my friends their parents have just decided, hey, we're moving to Asheville. Yeah. And they're the older people, people who are at retirement age, they have a very much better chance of finding a place they want to live here. Yeah. Where people who are working age like me, or you, we're still kind of fighting it out.
Yeah. It would be amazing, but I lived in LA long enough to have, where my sister would be like, oh, we're going to move out to LA, and nobody ever does. So
you're like, I just don't
hold my breath for it.
It's fire season. Stay clear.
I have low expectations. But yeah, so it's been great. Our son is happy and thriving, and he gets to play outside all the time. Nice. And he's got great teachers at daycare. He's got his, grandparents that he FaceTimes every Sunday, and the other one that he sees a couple times a week. And it's just been awesome. It's been really fun. And like I said, I've been able to meet so many amazing creative industry people who are in Asheville, not in Atlanta or Charlotte, but in Asheville, and that's really cool.
It makes you think the infrastructure is already here. All we need is the money.
You need the money. It all starts and ends with the money. Much to the chagrin of anybody who's creative. But that's the life of the entertainment industry.
Well, I think we've hit our mark here. Do you have any final thoughts?
No. Do you want me to have a final thought on something?
I'd love it.
Okay.
Give us quote us a poem or something. No, you don't have to. I'm just saying.
No, I'm so grateful that you set this up with me. It's so nice to just talk some of this stuff out and, talk about the state of our industry and the state of our state in the industry. The
state of our state.
Exactly. And there's a lot of growth potential in this area, and that is massively exciting. So I am looking forward to what Asheville is going to turn out creatively in the next several years.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm Josh Lloyd, and this is #NoFilter. You're on the Ridge.